podcast is stories of real-life events and true crime that happens every day. These stories may contain adult language and graphic or disturbing details not suitable for everyone. Listener discretion is advised.
132 in Bush, I've got him at gunpoint. They're pulling them out.
10-1-1, advise ready for entry camp.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Chuck.
And Chuck might have a little delay today because he looks like he's having some connection problems with his internet.
Oh, you know what? It just started.
Mm-hmm.
So that's cool. It should kick back in. I have a dedicated line to this room, so hopefully it kicks.
A dedicated line? What is this, 1997, and you're on AOL with dial-up?
It's a dedicated server. Well, not server, but deal. It's like a puck. It's dedicated to my... Oh, let's go back. Come back. It's dedicated for this computer. So anytime I'm on this computer, it isolates it and says, nope, you take priority.
So you have priority devices set up on your...
Yeah,
I did that with one. I did that where I was like, oh yeah, if my laptop or my phone is on, then I get the best speeds in the world and everybody else can suck it.
I can also kick people off. So if my kid pisses me off, and
I can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I can automatically just boop, boop, boop. You're done.
I've threatened my son with that. Like, you want me to turn the internet off? I will.
I love it.
I can also dictate what networks people go on. All that kind of stuff. So how have you been? You shared a little information with me I wasn't privy to yet before we.
Yeah. So, I retired. I went through
officially retired.
Yeah, I retired from the Los Angeles Police Department. And it's been like a little bit, like a couple months now.
For those of you that never figured it out, that's the agency that Chuck would never say he worked for.
Yeah. Even though you could fucking tell right here.
No, I mean, here's the thing. Only people familiar with your agency would know. There's some things that people wouldn't be able to guess that didn't know. I know the clues. A lot of LAPD guys know the clues because we know the language.
Yeah.
So how is it? You're officially retired.
Sucks, man. Well, I mean, it was a lot. So it's bittersweet. It's something that I can never go and do back. I can never do that again. So that kind of sucked. It was emotional.
Well, that's not entirely true.
Well, I mean,
guys that they retire from their agency, they go out of state, they wait 2 or 3 years, they heal up, and then they go apply for another cop job.
I would have to give my old agency the opportunity to take me back.
You would. And
if I got better. Right. And if they told me, go pound sand,
then you can go work wherever the hell you want and you can still collect your retirement. So
yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But I can still do.
You're not healing up and you're not going to be in shape job ever again.
I got to have another surgery on my knee, and we'll see what that happens. And then my back is, I have to have the surgery on my back, but I don't want to have the surgery on my back. So I'm not going to do the surgery on my back right now. I'm waiting to see if something better comes around the pipe, and I'm just going to, try to get some Band-Aids put on it. Like I'm going to try to do an ablation on my back to see if that helps with the nerve pain and all that crazy crap and spasms. And then if that doesn't work, I'll look into artificial disc replacement. I don't want to give the spine surgeon who did my original surgery the chance to do another surgery on me, because I didn't like where he did the surgery and how he did it and where I was. And it was just a lot of things into that. And it's kind of scary because if that didn't work and the next one only has a 50% chance, I want the best person working on me. And I want to be, I want to have the best odds possible. And I'm not taking that lightly. So there's a lot of that going on. But I'm trying to look for other things to do, like desk jobs and things like that I actually want to do. And there's only a couple of things. So I'm being pretty selective on what I want to do. But I have to pay back every single award I was ever given. So I have about $200,000 I have to pay back for awards given to me just from injuries and things like that, surgeries, time off, state rate time, things like that. It equated to about $200,000. So I have to pay for the next 10 years back a a portion of that disability pension. I have to pay that back over the next 10 years.
Your agency has a fucked up system. That's all. I'm saying.
So I'm not getting what I should be getting, and it's like pennies. It's not a lot of money. It's pretty scary. There's a good chance we might be okay for the next few months. But
and that's the thing. At some point, you have to get a job, right? You know that, and
it's just
love, and it'll be good to go. I know it's frustrating. Just stick with it. You find something you love. Have faith. I did.
Yeah.
It worked out.
Well, I'm trying to go into the defense industry and aerospace. But the thing is I don't have a TS and I don't have a secret clearance. I only had a public trust in law enforcement. Right. It's confidential, public trust clearance, but I don't have the security clearance for secret or TS. So I can't go into those things in the base level jobs. Dude, it is so hard to get in. It is harder to get in to the defense industry and into aerospace than it is getting on LAFD. Which LAFD, if anyone knows the history of LAFD, it used to be who you knew to get in. You had to have family there.
Yeah.
And you couldn't get in. It's harder than that.
Well, speaking of retirement, our guest today is also a retired police officer.
Yeah.
So with 3 freshly retired police officers all swapping stories and none of us having to worry about pissing off our admin and taking discipline, I think our guest probably the only thing he has to worry about is people that are still there that he is friends with and doesn't want to cause any problems for, because that's always an issue, right? That guilt by association in our old profession. So tell us about who our guest is.
So we have Jesse. Jesse came on. He's a retired law enforcement specialist out of Hollister. His experience is law enforcement and military. He did 4 years, 9 months in the military, and he was part of OIF. And he actually found us because his buddy Dave was on our show and spoke about an incident where an officer was shot. Well, this is the officer who was shot. Jesse, nice to meet you, buddy.
Hey, nice to meet you guys too. Thank you guys for having me.
How's it going?
It's going all right. Yeah.
Good
to be on here. I'm glad to see that Chuck's got a drink. I'm not the only one with a drink.
Yeah, well, I do, but right now it's just water.
I thought that was a twisted tea.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
A lot of people think it's a Coors Banquet because of the color scheme.
Yeah.
It looks.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, it's like that.
Yeah,
yellow.
I can see that.
Anyway, no, I'll be doing that later. In fact, I have things that if you see my camera go blank in the podcast, it's only because I had to talk to somebody who walked in the room, because it's crazy at my house today. It's just, and we rehomed a dog. We had some friends that were up like crazy. So let's have some fun. Work's been insane. This is not the podcast for me to really talk about it. We're here to talk about Jesse. So Jesse, tell us about so remind our listeners how your story ties into a previous guest.
So previous guest of yours, Dave, came on a month, maybe 6 weeks ago. He sent me the link. I didn't know it was happening. And he talked about an incident that he was involved in where a deputy was shot, and he was part of the response and part of the aftermath of that shooting.
SWAT call out.
The SWAT call out right up to the point where the suspect was finally rendered safe, for lack of a better term. So,
and correct me if I'm wrong, this was a big shit show.
It was,
and it caused a lot of problems on the team.
Yeah, it caused a lot of problems in the department.
Caused a lot of problems.
Oh, yeah, it decimated their SWAT team. Yeah, they were not in a good spot right now. So, and a lot of that was not necessarily the incident itself, but maybe the handling of that incident afterwards.
Right.
That caused.
But it's not the crime; it's the cover up, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it was just lack of everything, lack of resources for the officers, lack of compassion for what they've gone through and things of that nature.
Right.
It was a tough deal for everybody in that sense.
What, a department being not having compassion for its people?
Right. Yeah.
That's so weird. I don't know what that's
numbers.
like.
So
I think that's
dude
unheard of.
It's an epidemic. To be quite honest.
I thought it was just me, and then I hear about the other guys that went through it, and like no mental health support for me. I not only discharged my weapon, but was shot myself. No mental health. I paid for my own therapist for a full year after this.
Right. No shit.
Yeah, out of my pocket. There was nothing. So
that's not the agency you retired from, or it is?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's the only agency I ever worked for in law enforcement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was there for 17 years. I was pretty loyal to them. And I liked it there. I liked it there for a long time. It just
17 years. You can see retirement.
Yeah.
It's not right around the corner.
I was past the halfway mark. Yeah, I was past the halfway mark. I got into a good position. I was a bomb technician, so I had bomb squad. I had a K9, bomb detection K9. I was in the civil unit, so I was, serving civil paperwork and doing evictions on weekends off. Great shift. I was probably the happiest I've ever been at that job, right up to a point, right till I wasn't happy. Until I was in that spot. So.
Well, and we're no strangers to that on this show. I mean, one of my closest buddies, we were partners together right out of the academy. He's been on this show, and he's talked about getting shot during a foot pursuit, and taking 4 rounds, and ultimately, like, they don't take care of you. When he started struggling and he started having issues as a result of that shooting, even though it wasn't right then and there, it was a little bit down the road. No, he was a broken toy. So
I do have to say this though. Law enforcement does a really good job of not offering support when people are in critical incidences, and it's I think it's a culture thing, or what we used to do back in the day type of thing, how we used to handle it, and it's so shitty that when that happens. Because I know when I got into mine, the watch commander at the time was like, "Hey, so I'm going to see you back tomorrow." And I was like, "No, man, I'm going to take some time off. I think I'm going to go and talk to someone about this. I don't think I would be right to come back right off of the bat. It's not going to be safe for me or the public." And I had that wherewithal to know. And he was like, "No, I'll see you tomorrow." I said, "No, man, I'm not coming back." And I was joking, like I did this for you. I ended up shooting that guy for you, like, to save everybody else here, so they didn't get shot. I had to end that threat, and they didn't do a real good job. And then they're like, "Hey, well, you already had your meeting with the shrink." I was like, "The shrink said, 'Hey, what's up? You're the officer involved. Yeah. Hey, we'll talk later.'" And he was like, "So that was your first session, right?" And I was like, No, man, it wasn't. And my first session isn't going to be scheduled for another few days, and I won't be cleared to return back, especially not field certified. And you only have to go through department mandated. I want to say it's like 3 sessions before they say, "Hey, you're good to go back to work." I had to do 4 before the therapist was like, "Okay, you can go back." And then if I wanted to continue treatment, I could have for a certain period of time. But if I went past that allotted amount of time, then I was going to have to pay for that out of my own pocket or utilize my own insurance type of deal. And I was like, that's kind of bullshit. And
it's not kind of bullshit. It's just bullshit.
Yeah. And I think the departments out there, like law enforcement, and there are some that are outliers that are really good and will really have your back, but I feel like that's few and far between. And I think it's the culture of that machismo culture that we're men, we can do this, or we're hardcore police women, we can do this. But at the same time, you got to train your body like you train your mind. You don't train your body once a year, right? You don't do that, because then you're going to get hurt. It's the same thing with your mind. And if you're not doing proactive treatments after something traumatic happens, you're behind the 8 ball on it, and that's going to cause you severe issues down the road. And I've seen so many cops with PTS or PTSD when they don't get the help, and it turns into a disorder or whatever, and I could be using that wrong, but
officer, you have an obligation to be right mentally and physically before you come back, because you're making that decision again. You got
because then liability is on you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not just liability, but your conscience.
Oh God, yeah, liability. They preach the L word so hard. Like, it's funny because at my current job, and I work for another public entity, and I work with a lot of high profile people, and there's like 1 or 2 other people that at the high level that are able to preach liability as good as I can, because they're they have PhDs and they've been like doing this for 30 years in their field, and I'm like, no, day 1 of the police academy, like, first thing they start talking about is liability, and you never ever stop hearing about liability your entire career, right? That's beaten into our heads. And so how can liability not transfer to the department when they don't take care of you? Well, but Jesse, let's talk about a little bit, just briefly, about your journey into law enforcement. So you served for 4.5 years.
Yep.
And where'd you serve? What branch were you in?
So I was in the Army.
Mm-hmm.
I went into the Army right out of high school. I grew up in eastern Montana, and there's not a lot of industry in eastern Montana. Grew up on a family ranch, and lovely, beautiful. I love it to this day. Always be where I came from. But as a young man, I didn't want to be a rancher, and so if I wasn't going to be a rancher in eastern Montana, it's leave eastern Montana, right?
Right. So I get out too. So
yeah, exactly. It's like, hey, I'm not. I played college. I played high school football. I was an all-state linebacker, and it was my senior year. But all-state in Montana is not the same as it is everywhere else. I wasn't good enough to play D1 football anywhere when I knew that. And I was smart enough at 18 to know that. So I went in the Army. I actually was in basic training week 6 when 9/11 happened.
No shit, huh?
Yeah, I was down in Fort Benning. I'm not sorry, Fort Benning. I was in Fort Knox, Kentucky. I was stationed at Fort Benning later, but I was in Fort Knox for basic training. 9/11 happens. Drill sergeants come in. They say everything's changed. You got to get ready because it's happening.
Right.
And they were right. They were absolutely right. I finished basic training. Went to station at Fort Benning. 3 months. I'm overseas. The first deployment was just a gear up deployment, training deployment. And then I was in Iraq. I was in Kuwait when we invaded Iraq in 2003 with the 3rd Infantry Division.
Oh, wow. That must have
20
been
years
a
old.
Factor.
It was crazy. I was a gunner on a Humvee on a scout truck. I was a scout for a tank battalion. I'll tell you what, that's a scary deal when you're 20 years old crossing the border in on top of a Humvee.
Oh yeah.
So I had that deployment, came back from that one, turned around. I was home for about a year and a half, went to airborne school, did some other stuff, turned around, went back for another year in 2005. I was gone all of 2005. I had just gotten married and was gone the entire first year of my marriage to Iraq. And what I learned in the nearly 5 years I did was that this is not what I want to do with the rest of my life. I watched guys who's gone for a year and their kids are turning, a child that's 1 year old when you leave and that's 2 year olds when you get back. That's a huge change in their life.
Right.
Kids that don't recognize their fathers. That's horrible.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that anymore. I'm going to go get into law enforcement, which I wanted to do since I was a kid.
Yeah, because that's not hard on families at all.
Not at all.
No, it's not. Right. Yeah, exactly. It's not. I don't know. I don't know why
You're
I'm
splitting hairs.
I don't know why I'm. Well, the difference is that when if I come home from work, I'm at home with my family.
So here's
I'm not in a tent on the other side of the world.
Yeah. And
exactly.
I actually had this discussion and it didn't hit me. I was I was after retirement. I met one of the guys, one of the members of 101st Airborne Easy Company. He was the one of the medics from Easy Company. In the film he's depicted, or in the miniseries, he's the one depicted the medic that's performing first aid on the lieutenant in the middle of the field under sniper fire, right? That's this guy. And we were talking, and I said, of course, I'm like, I read the book, loved the miniseries, what you guys did speaks to me, my grandfather, blah 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 blah. The whole thing. I don't get starstruck. I was starstruck, right?
Right.
And here's this little 80-something-year-old man in a wheelchair, and he goes, "Oh, were you in the military?" I said, "No, sir, I was not, but I was a police officer, for a long time until I retired." And his eyes lit up, and he grabbed my hand, and his little frail old man hand. He's like, "Oh no, thank you for your service." And I'm like, "No. What I do and did is nothing compared to what you did." He goes, "No. He says, "What you did it's more important. He says, my deployment only lasted 3 years. Your deployment lasted 20.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about it, but you really do deploy for 12 hours at a time.
Yeah.
Because you have to go somewhere in your mind. You have to go somewhere in your spirit. You have to go, you become a different person, and your family has to be the furthest thing from your mind. They have to be on the other side of the world, like not physically, but at least
you're leaving the wire every day. Yeah,
right, exactly.
Yeah, and I wish there was something that they talked about that in the academy where, where you might be home from, off of work, and for my agency we call them deployments, and every month is a deployment period. So they do use that word, and it's synonymous with going from the station out. And so I wish they would talk about it in the academy where, yes, you may come home, but sometimes your mind will not be home. Your mind's still there. doing the shit that you were doing. And I wish that they would talk about that more and be more self-aware of that. And so these young coppers coming out on the streets, they know that, and they can protect themselves better and get do like the workouts, like I'm saying, like talk to someone preemptively or as a protective measure to help your psyche, because you're going to eventually see some shit that you're going to go home, you're going to see your family, but sometimes you're going to be a shell of a person because you're still dealing with that shit, and they may have you in your body, but your mind is not there. And I wish they would talk about that more, because I think it would help a lot more people.
There's a good book I read on that talks about that. It's called.
Is that Emotional Survival for Law Enforcement?
You've read it, yeah, absolutely.
Oh shit!
I didn't read it until after I got hurt.
So here's the thing, right?
I've never read it.
My chief, dude, you have to read it.
You got to read it.
Okay, so we're going to spend this entire episode, and we're not going to hear you talk about a single thing.
That's fine.
We got it.
No,
this is good. I like this though.
So that book, I have specifically put it up on the screen before. I will put it up again. So we got a new chief. This new chief didn't know me from Adam when it came, like he just, he'd been on the job 6 months, right? Like he doesn't know shit. He knows what people tell him, but he doesn't know me, right?
Right.
He ends up being the chief in charge when I had to put in my, paperwork, IOD, and potentially a career ender, and we were talking because I was pretty upset, and he kind of didn't know what to do, like, I don't know what to do with my hands, because he had to come down to my house and, put me out, give me the letter, like we had to go through the whole thing. And it's funny, he goes, do I need to take your badge and your gun? I said, I own my badge and I bought my own gun. He's like, oh, okay, never mind. But he gave me this book, and he goes, listen, I know,
dude,
may not help right now, or it may not change anything for you, but I wish somebody had shared this book with me earlier on in my career. Chuck, this book is literally like a quarter of an inch thick. It is so short. And I shit you not, Jesse, back me up here. As I read it, I went, is this fucker in my house?
Yeah.
Right. Like,
this guy living in my head.
How did he know that my wife and I have had that argument? How did he know what I do, what my routine is? Like, how did he know I was thinking that about what's going on around me? Like, to the point where he graphed, the graph from the wave sign that we're talking about. And that's one of the biggest takeaways from this book is what you're talking about. So you go outside the wire, right, for 12 hours, and you have to operate at knife's edge for 12 hours, head on a swivel. We all know the every good cop goes home at the end of his shift, and we can repeat all those mantras. But we ultimately know, I would tell my wife, hey, don't be mad when I walk out the door to go to work, because what if that's the last time you see me? I don't want you to live the rest of your life knowing the last words you said to me were in anger. Right. And she was like, oh shit. Right. So that's the kind of getting out of the wire you get to. Then when you finally come home, right, you can't do anything but sleep. So you go into a deep coma to try and recover, and then you're back out for a 12-hour shift, right? So you're riding that wave. So when you finally do come home on your days off, you are so drained emotionally that it takes you 24 to 36 hours to even get back up to a normal level. But by then, you're already thinking about going back to work, and you're starting to climb the hill again in your brain, because you're anticipating in another 12 hours, I have to get back at it.
It's that cortisol
hypervigilance roller coaster.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find that.
It's that cortisol ramp up. So when your body deals with stress, you have a spike in cortisol, right? Adrenaline, cortisol, and then it's really hard to come down. Then you get that dump, right? Because everything just drops, and then you're like, "Fuck, I'm tired," right? It's that whole roller coaster. ramp up, ramp down. And then what you're saying is crazy, because when you get ready, you're getting ready to go back to work. It's the day before, maybe 12 hours before, your body starts to ramp that shit back up. And because I got to get back into that mindset, into that zone. And when I wake up tomorrow morning, or when I wake up tonight, or when I go to work tonight or tomorrow night, or whenever the fuck you're going to work, you've got to be on it. And you have to make sure that your mind is clear and you leave all your baggage at the locker or at your fucking house. And I totally understand that feeling, because I would get that way too. I would start getting that ramp up. I'm like, what the fuck is going on with me? Like, your heart rate increases and everything happens, and you have a hard time. Sometimes you have a hard time sleeping because you're getting ready to go to work. And then maybe that second day at work, you fucking crash and you're just done. And then you go back to work again and you're like, you feel okay. And then it's that whole perpetual, it's like an evil cycle.
Well, Jesse, you were at a dog, right?
Yeah.
They always, so they always tell you want the dog to be excited. And look, Chuck, on duty,
you want the dog
alive,
to want to go
alert,
to work.
energetic, involved, humorous, on duty. Opposite reaction. You get home, you rebound the exact opposite direction, tired, detached, isolated, and apathetic. You then go back and do it all over again. And so you're so depleted when you get to the end that you're just trying to get back into the normal range. And by the time you get into the normal range,
spouses should read that shit too.
Go back to work.
Yeah. Spouses definitely should read it.
Spouses definitely should. So Jesse, you've been on
wow.
You've been on a part of this. We've talked to a lot of cops that have been in OISs. But there is an even smaller subsection of officers, and that's those who have been the subject or the victim in an OIS. And so that was are we okay to talk about that? Is that what we talk about?
Yeah, that's kind of what I came to talk about. It's been almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years actually this weekend.
Wow.
The 31st. Yeah.
So this is still pretty fresh.
It's fresh.
Yeah, it is, and it is. I mean, 2 years is a long time for most people. It's not necessarily for something like this. But right. I felt like after seeing Dave's podcast, I said, I think it's time to talk about it. And really, I'm not trying to talk about it for any kind of self-serving reasons. I'm hoping that what I have to say and what I tell people helps someone else going through a similar situation, helps someone else hurt, help someone else that gets in a shooting, whatever it is, because it's not a fun thing to go through. It's not an easy thing to go through. And the key to it, though, is that you're not alone. You're not the only one. And I had a lot of great friends that I was surrounded. I mean, if it wasn't for my friends and family, I probably would have drank myself in the first 2 months. I'd be dead, right? I would have just drank. It was rough. It was a rough couple months. But I have a wonderful wife who's been by my side. We've been married 20 years now. Son, he was 10 at the time. He's just turned 12.
She knew you before you were a cop.
She did. She met me when I was in the Army.
That's so important.
It is. And she got into law enforcement in different capacity. She dispatches for a different agency.
Wow.
We didn't work together, thank goodness.
Can we talk to her someday?
Maybe.
We've wanted to talk.
Like, I don't know, man.
You want to talk to a dispatcher? I'll ask her. I mean,
we want to talk about what it's like to be on the other side of the mic when people are getting shot at, when people you love are like that, because that's a whole different level of like horror movie. Like that's the being on the other end of the phone and hearing your loved one
scream.
Like it's like Scream, right? Like she's on the phone and she's being murdered and people hear it,
Oh,
and then it tones out and you don't know what happened.
Right. Yeah. And there's death silence, that dead silence.
Right.
I actually got in a motorcycle accident, been a long time ago now, in her jurisdiction. And one of the officers that responded, I got T-boned in an intersection on my motorcycle. And one of the officers responded. I went to the academy with him. So he calls her. He says, "Hey, that's motorcycle accident I'm at. It's your husband." Oh. She was mad. I don't think she was scared at all, but she was mad.
I told him not to take the bike out.
Oh, exactly right. She's like, he's selling this motorcycle. I'm not, no more motorcycles, right? Like she showed up on scene and she just had her arms crossed, and that's the sign that she's angry. I've known her for a long time. And I was like, oh boy, somebody's in trouble. I'm glad I'm going to the hospital. It ain't gonna be me, but she was pretty upset. And so this is not the first time that she's had to come to the hospital for me.
She sounds like a badass chick, dude.
Oh, she's a tough one. I got in an on-duty car accident where I was ejected out of a patrol car about 10 years ago.
Fuck me.
Showed up at that accident, showed up at the hospital that night, New Year's Eve, our 10-year anniversary. Just a trooper. She's a tough woman. So
you got like 9 lives.
I do. But I'm not. There's obviously some kind of purpose I've got left. I don't know.
Yeah, and we're gonna figure it out.
Yep.
Let's figure this out. I love it.
Absolutely.
And I'll tell you that because I want to hear. We still need to get to how you ended up where you're at, but your wife, and here's why. My mother was a dispatcher at for LA back in the Adam 12 days. One of my friends is the dispatch supervisor in another PD. That's a hard thing to do. Yeah. And so I just wanted to say that we're being totally truthful when we talk about it, because that's an insane job to do in the dark.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
I sit there and people, I would just be jittery the whole time. It would drive me nuts. Couldn't do it.
But what's funny is you talk about your wife and being mad at you, and I'll say this. So one of the guys that I got in an OIS, she was working the console at her home agency. Her husband's on the task force with me and in fact, the guy that I used to work with that you're going to go see, because we talked about this before.
Yeah.
We
can say his first
name.
Senior. Mike.
Yeah.
Senior.
Mike.
Yeah.
Mike and my buddy Matt were in the car ahead of us on the freeway. And so they weren't involved in the whole incident. And then when we were involved, they heard it on the radio. They came back. They were able to help us because they weren't part of the investigation anymore. So it was God,
right,
providence that they weren't, and they felt guilty that they weren't with us. They're like, we should have waited and gone with you guys and not, nope, worked out. Well, his old lady's a dispatcher. She's hearing an officer from the narcotics task force has been involved in an officer-involved shooting in Santa Barbara, and she knows her husband left at 2:00 in the morning with the task force to go do an operation in Santa Barbara, and nobody thinks to call her at the PD behind the console and tell her, hey, it's not your husband.
Oh, so she didn't need. Oh,
so she didn't know until
That's
it was yeah. So just
rough
that
job.
kind of shit. But the fact that your wife knew you beforehand is super critical. We have a friend whose wife said the only reason I was able to get through his medical retirement was because I knew who he was before all of it happened, and I knew what he had to get back to, and I just helped him get back to that. So you've been through. You're in that subsection of officers where, not only have you've taken rounds for your department and you've tried to come back. This is 2 years ago, but it sounds like you can start wherever you want, but it sounds like the incident itself was bad for you. The aftermath was bad for everybody.
Yeah, you could say that. It's funny how you look at things 2 years later. It was a horrible thing to go through, but 2 years later, I'm still here. I'm still here with my family. I have both my arms. So I took 2 rounds here in the arm, shattered the bone, destroyed the artery. They were able to save it, and I can still. I can't cast a fishing pole very good. Can't throw a baseball with my son, but I can give him a hug every day.
That's right.
Every day. So for something that was really, really traumatic and horrendous at the time, I look back on it, and now I'm retired. I get to spend every morning. I get up and make him breakfast before he goes to school. Every day I'm home when he gets home. I get to spend all my time that I want to with the people that I love. I get to go spend time with friends when I want to. I get to do all the things that normal retired people get to do, but I get to do it a lot earlier. 42 years old, fully retired.
Right.
And I'll probably find a job eventually, but right now I'm just enjoying healing, healing up and enjoying my time. So
kind of puts things in perspective.
Yeah. And I'm the only one who got hurt. That's really the important thing too. I mean, a man lost his life, and it is tragic. It's tragic that a man lost his life in this instance. But he chose that.
I will agree that whatever events happen to an innocent baby to lead him to a place in his life where he acts like that, that is objectively sad. I feel nothing for that person.
I forgave him. I've forgiven him.
No, and I get it. I had to forget. I had to go through that whole thing where I had some
I don't have any room in my heart to hate someone who's dead.
Well, and that was the thing. That's right. Yeah. That's it, right? Like, I don't hate it. The opposite of love and hate, right? It's apathy. I don't care. Like, I don't think about them. I don't let them, like, they are what they are. But I will tell you, I don't have to think anything of him because I know he's a piece of shit.
Yeah. I had some torn feelings on it at the beginning. I've come to terms with it now. At the beginning, I was really upset that a man had to lose his life over a crappy apartment. And I felt bad for shooting a man in his own home when I'm trying to kick him out. Right, that's what I was there to do, is kick him out of his home. Right. And so I struggled with that for a little while, but I came to the realization that everything that happened in that sense, the shooting, he chose.
Right.
He waited for me, and he knew I was coming in there, and he tried to orphan my son, and he tried to widow my wife, and he didn't know me. He didn't know me from Adam.
Nope.
But I went there, and I never ever had any intention of hurting anybody. I had one job to do. It was to get him out of the apartment safely, and that was my goal from the beginning. So when the violence happened, it wasn't violence I chose; it was violence I reacted to, and it was. That's how I kind of wrapped my mind around the whole thing. Was I didn't choose this. I reacted to his choices, and as tragic as it is, it was his choice. So
he chose this.
Can you saw, it's harder for us sometimes because you saw him as a human.
Yes.
Right. So you are grieving for your actions that took the life of somebody who would never have grieved for their actions if they got like. So it's this weird, it's part of what you're saying.
That's what makes us different from them.
Correct. And that's exactly it, right? That's where our humanity, while it may get hamstrung at times or deadened with alcohol or confused or lost, it doesn't die because we want to help people. Right.
As aggravating as everyone is to me, I want to help people.
And if you don't have that attitude, you're in the wrong profession.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Even the day before, if they spit in your face, call you a pig, say you're a piece of shit, threaten to kill you, the next day they're a victim of a crime or a shooting or whatever the fuck, and they're dying, and you're trying to save their life, you don't look at them and go, "Oh, I'm going to let you die because you're an asshole to me yesterday." You don't care. Your brain doesn't work that way when you go into public service. And I'm speaking for myself and many officers that I know. Can't speak for everybody, but I can speak for the majority of people that I know. And we will be there. We'll be the first ones to put our body in front of yours to protect you if the threat is still there. Even though you were a dick to us the day prior, we don't care because we're here to save lives. We're here to protect you. That's why we did this job. Yeah. But can you paint a picture on what led up to the incident and how it happened?
Okay, so it was May 31st, 23. I was the civil deputy, and I say the civil deputy. I was the only one. I'm the only civil deputy there. We are
for the whole county.
Yeah, and it's a big county.
I know that county. It's not small.
One civil deputy for the entire county.
It's got some pretty rural areas.
We are probably one of the only counties in California that I know of that would serve evictions with one person. Shit. I've been to civil schools where they say, "Does anyone here serve evictions by themselves?" And I'm the only one putting my hand up, and I go, "You guys are stupid. You need to know."
Well, and that's about as stupid as my agency letting female officers serve arrest warrants at people's homes by themselves.
Yeah, anything like that, and it's not just female, anybody by themselves. Just terrible idea. Don't go to stuff like that by yourself, right? So I've done a lot of it.
It was just only the females that would do it, and like we'd be like, we wouldn't do it. Why? What? Don't.
What are you thinking? Right.
Bad.
But and civil,
you don't have anything to prove. You're already here.
Yeah. A lot of people, especially who work for police departments, don't understand the civil process. An eviction is just a lawsuit. Right. It's called an unlawful detainer. So someone sued another person, said, "I want my real property back," and the judge said yes. And so all it is I'm doing is I'm taking a piece of real property and I'm taking possession of one person and give it to another person. It's a civil process.
Right. It's
so our right to know
property, hand him that thing, but you can't hand it
out. Now you're no longer a resident here, and it's his property again.
Yeah. Right.
It's most of the time very straightforward and simple. But the reality of the situation is that someone is losing their home. Someone is losing the place they live. So the emotional portion of it is much different than the reality. But what the problem is that we don't get to know a lot of things because it's a civil process. I don't have a right to know a person's criminal history. They lost a lawsuit, right? I don't get to. There's a lot of things that I don't get to know. So I've served evictions that there's no name on. It just says evict all occupants. And I showed up at a house in the north end of the city that I worked in, and there's 8 crackheads spread through this house. It's a flop house. Right. And now I'm by myself because I didn't know this. and I'm kicking eight crackheads out of a flop house. So it's inherently dangerous. But the nice thing about it being inherently dangerous is when I call for backup, and Dave mentioned this, when I say I need another unit, they all know that I'm serious, right? I'm not somebody that calls for another unit every single time.
Yep.
When I ask for another unit, it's coming, right?
We
so this morning, I had
a
bad feeling about this. There was things that I did subconsciously that I didn't realize till afterwards. Like I parked my patrol car way outside the apartment complex behind another building because subconsciously I have a dog in there. My canine's in that car, and if this kicks off, that car is a bullet magnet. I don't want my dog getting hurt, right? So I parked my car way outside and I walked in.
Right, because he's not a bite dog.
No, but either way, he's trapped in a car. If this guy starts shooting, he's going to shoot my car up. Where dogs can get hurt, and that's the last thing I want, right?
So that's what I mean. He's not good in a fight.
No, I'm not coming. He's not coming with me. He's staying in the car. He's not a bite dog.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I walked in, and by myself, it's like 8 a.m. It's the first eviction of the day. Usually I don't plan them before 8 a.m. I go up and they say, "Are you by yourself?" The apartment complex manager, and they said, "This guy's pretty out there. We don't know if he's in there. No one's seen him in a couple of days, but he's pretty out there. This is a halfway house. This is apartments that they are designated for people with mental health disorders who have substance abuse problems."
So you're doing an eviction from a Section 8 crack
halfway house, right? This is not because he didn't pay rent, because this is a government subsidized house.
Right.
This is because he scared the other residents so bad that they had to kick him out. Right. That's how off the wall this guy is. So I'm hearing this, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm here by myself, but if something happens, we'll get some other people here. And the same thing, I planned it for 8 a.m. Subconsciously, all my day shift guys are just getting out of briefing. Not just my day shift guys, but the local PD day shift. They're all clear in briefing. They're not tied up on calls yet. If something kicks off, there's a lot of available units to respond. Turned out to be one of the things that saved my life. So I get up to the door, locksmith's working on the door. I'm knocking, trying to talk. I don't hear anybody inside. There's no response. The locksmith's working on the door. At this point, there's no active resistance. I don't even know if he's inside. And a lot of times evictions are like that. You'll go in and there's no one there. And it's like, okay, well, I wasted a bunch of time for this.
Right.
So,
Oops.
But I had a bad feeling. So I get on the radio and I said, hey, send me another unit. There's nothing going on right now, but there's no one answering the door. We think you're probably inside. Just send me another unit. Well, because briefing had just let out, they didn't just send me one unit. They sent me 2 units. And both of those units were training units. So they had an FTO and a trainee with them. So I not only not just get one deputy, I get 4 deputies. Now, granted, 2 of them are trainees. 4 guns. Yep, 4 guns, right? Exactly. 4 people, 4 sets of handcuffs, 4 sets of tourniquets, everything else.
Yep.
All of that comes into play. So I get 4 people up there. It's amazing too. One of the trainees, young lady, never met her before that day. They will all walk up there to join me. The locksmith's still working. I said, "Oh, you get to see an eviction today." Never didn't even know her name. So we work on the door a little bit, and so the locksmith finally gets the lock to turn, and from inside, suspect relocks it, and the locksmith kind of jumped back and he said, "Did you see that?" I said, "Yeah, I saw that."
Right. He's there.
Yeah, he's there.
Oh.
Now you need to leave because this is now it's a little more active resistance, a little more concern on my part. I know he's in there. He's obviously not going to come out willingly, so it's going to get a little bit.
The hair on the back of your neck are starting to stand up.
And I'm going, okay, but I've had this happen before too. No, I'm not going to come out.
Right.
So me and one of the training officers, Dave, his name is Dave as well. There's several Daves, but this Dave, he's a SWAT guy and he's been breach trained. And we get the maintenance guy has a little flat crowbar and a small 3-pound sledgehammer. So we start working on the door. It's a metal door. And I gave a phone call to some other SWAT guys to go get some breaching equipment. I said, we're going to have to breach this door. This guy's not going to come out. But I didn't know that he was going to violently resist either, right? It's just someone not wanting to come out. And I'd had this. In the year and a half that I had done this job, this was actually the second time I'd been ambushed. The first guy didn't actually have any real guns. We were able to end that peacefully. But I had 2 suicide attempts. I had all kinds of stuff. So you just never know what's inside.
Right.
So me and him start working on the door. And I get the door pried far enough that we can smack it with the hammer and it pops the deadbolt. But it won't open all the way because, of course, it's barricaded behind the door. It only opens maybe a foot. And just enough for me to get my big head and my gun inside there. And it's a little hallway down to a corner of a room. Nothing much in there. It's very small. Smaller than probably most hotel rooms you can see. So I get my gun in there. I got a weapons light on my gun, and I'm yelling, "Show me your hands! Let me see your hands." And I can only see This guy he's down the hallway around the corner, but I can see the left side of his face. And he comes out with the left. I see his eye in the dark, and he says, "You need to get out of here." And at that point, I see the muzzle of his rifle pointing right at my face. Maybe 15 feet at most away from his rifle. And then the most eerie sound that I have ever heard in my life was the hammer drop on that rifle, and it didn't go off. This man had 5 days to prep for me. Thousands of rounds of ammunition, guns, water stored up to put out the hot gas. And either he didn't chamber around in his weapon or it was a misfire. And I instantly realized I was in a bad situation. So I started firing on him. I got a Glock. It's 9mm Glock. And all I can see is the side of his face and his left shoulder and the right. But my thought process was, if I can put a round on that point of that shoulder, he'll drop this gun, right? That's hard to hold a rifle when you get shot. Yeah. So I start firing rounds at him.
What kind of a rifle?
It was an AK-47. Find out later. It's what it looked like for me.
How the hell did he get an AK?
I don't know. California gun laws. He shouldn't have had it, but whatever. Let's not do that. So, but
basically, he just has to pull the trigger.
So I see my rounds impacting. I know I'm hitting him. Okay. And he retreats kind of around the corner just enough to chamber around in his rifle or rechamber around, whatever it is. And my rounds are not having the effect that I wanted. And it was at that point where I was really thinking I was in trouble. So he comes around the corner, he rechambers around, and he comes back for a second time. And I was like, I need to get out of here. Go ahead. What were you saying, Chuck?
Yeah, it's like that dream that we all have as law enforcement, where we're shooting at someone because they're shooting back, and you keep shooting. You're like, nothing's happening. What the hell is going on?
Exactly.
But this is real life.
The rounds are not doing what I wanted to do.
How scary was that? Right.
It was pretty
How
scary.
scary was that? In that moment, you're living your nightmare. You're living the nightmare that we've all had. That spongy trigger that you pull the trigger and nothing happens. What did that feel like in that moment?
Please let me wake up.
This is like all those days at the range, but I can't hit anything or something. But I know I'm hitting this guy.
Right.
And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, he's going to come out here. He's going to kill me. He's going to kill my partners. This is bad, right? He's got us outgunned. We're on a balcony. Everything about it was bad. And I'm thinking, that everybody talks about fight or flight. Fight or flight time kicks in. Mm-hmm. And people that know me know that there is no flight in me. And that's not necessarily always a good thing. If I had bounced out of that doorway right the minute he pulled that rifle up, I would have never got shot. I probably would have never taken those rounds. But there is no flight in me, right? So I fight it out with this guy in this doorway, small doorway. So he goes back around the corner and chambers around and comes back for a second burst. And I'm trying to get out of the doorway at that point. So as I'm trying to back out, realizing my rounds are not effective, I need to get out of this doorway. I take a burst through the door. And I took at least 2 in the arm. There's a lot of damage, so they weren't really sure. So I took at least 2 in the arm. I got some exit wounds down in the elbow area. And then this is all surgical scar.
7.62, right?
7.62. So 2 in the arm, 1 in the torso. It went right over the hole in my vest, hit me in the ribs. Shattered my ribs, skirted my liver. Part of it was lodged in the back. Part of it, I think, it knocked bone. There's some exit wounds out the back. So I'm laying on the ground thinking, oh, shit. I'm hurting. I was in shock. I was hurting. I hear the FTO, the male FTO. He says, get him out of the doorway. Poor guy. He's stuck on the wrong side of the doorway. The 2 trainees and the other FTO are on the side that we can get out. There's stairs to get down. But he's stuck on the wrong side of the doorway. This guy's still firing. So they get me out of the doorway. The female trainee that I'd never met before, I'm looking up at her. She's putting a tourniquet on my arm. The female FTO is putting out radio traffic. We got deputy down. They're all stellar. I have so many good things to say about this crew of people. There literally is not enough room and time in this podcast for me to say all the things I want to say about these people. Not just because of what they did on the scene, but because of the good people that they are. And I've gotten to know them on a personal level. Love every one of them. So, the male FTA or the male trainee, he's covering the corner, making sure we're not going to get lit up. Female trainees putting tourniquet on my arm. Female FTOs putting out radio traffic, coordinating response. They're no freezing, no running. They're in it, right? Fantastic crew. And I'm kind of halfway in shock, but I remember laying there going,
Can I say this real quick?
Yeah.
Oh wow, that lay is pretty.
Did we lose him?
No, I'm here.
Pretty rough. I just want to say this. I know it sucks for you. I know that you got hurt. I know your arm's all fucked up. You took a shit ton of rounds. But how beautiful is it when a plan works and their training and experience works, especially with brand new probationary officers, or maybe not brand new, but new officers that are on probation. All their training and everything kicks in, and it's what ultimately saves your life. How beautiful is that when all that works and you see all the hard work and dedication that everybody put in the academy, and it pays off. Like, that pays dividends, and that's the reason why you get to see your family every single day. And then that's a beautiful thing.
Right.
Rockstars, really. Yeah. The female trainee, she had sunglasses up on her head through the whole thing. Like, there's a picture of her when they're running out with me, sunglasses still on her head. She didn't, she was in it. Right.
Right.
She's since left law enforcement, unfortunately, but had a little baby this year. Amazing thing. Wonderful. Her husband's one of our guys, one of our deputies. Really, really good people. So, I'm really happy for them. But
it sounds like, things are working out for them.
It was meant to be. It was meant to happen that way, right? It's one of those things. It's one of the miracles that come out of this. So they get me kind of get me bound up a little bit. They get a tourniquet on me, and I'm laying there at the top of the stairway, and two of the local PD officers have responded, and they're running up the stairs. And I remember laying on my back, looking at them run up the stairs, and they both had long guns, and I don't remember if it was shotguns or rifles, what it was, but I remember thinking to myself, thank goodness we got some firepower, because we were completely outgunned. And one of those guys, he was a training officer, and his trainee, that was his trainee's very first day in training, was to respond to that call and be the first officers on scene. So just like I said, rock stars. So they dragged me down the stairs. I get to the bottom of the stairs, and I try to get them to stand me up so I could walk. And as soon as they set me up against the wall, a bunch of blood came out of the back of my vest. And Christy, the training, the FTO, she's like, no, lay back down. She laid back down. And I was going to try to walk. I knew I was hurt. Pretty bad. I'd seen military. I'd seen sucking chest wounds, and I was a little bit more concerned about that. So they tried to pick me up and carry me, and the two girls, Christy, Merlina, and Jaime, not a single one of them weighs more than 130 pounds. Jaime is one of the smallest guys I've ever seen. He's a solid dude, but he's small. They're both, and the two girls are both small. And at the time I was weighing 235. So with my gear, 260, 270, easy. And they are struggling, and I could feel them struggling. And I'm like, oh my God, this is never, it feels like we're
like, let me help you. Oh, are we losing him?
His connection might be a little bit poor. He said he was in the country where he lives, and he lives on 7 acres. So he might.
I was just talking.
Yeah. So I'll fix it in post. Okay. So we were talking about, just so people that don't know, we had a bad connection, and we were gone for about 5-6 minutes. I don't know, I'm not sure, maybe a little longer. Anyway, as we pick up, so you are all these people, all the training, the machine worked, everything, everybody did what they're supposed to do, right? You didn't retreat out of the doorway, right? But at the same time, if you had, he might have put one in your back.
He would have put me in the back, or he would have come out there and he would have killed all of us.
Or
I look at that later. I'm like, who knows what he did? He had a window that overlooked the parking lot, and if we were trying to escape, he would have just gunned us down. It would have been. It would have been.
So while you may question yourself and go, shoulda, woulda, coulda, right? Mm-hmm. If we're gonna say that God has a plan and things happen for a reason, then we have to be all in, and we have to understand that he put the right person for the job in that doorway. And send me, right? That's why we signed up.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I thought about that before too. I'll take those rounds every day, 100 times in a row, as long as nobody else does. If somebody else would have got hurt up there helping me out, that would have devastated me.
You saved lives, bro. And we always say, everything,
but they say
happens for a reason. And well, you saved theirs, because if you would have given up ground, like you were saying, he has Overwatch position. He has the high ground. If you would have given up that ground and say you would have retreated, you may have been gunned down and smoke checked as you were trying to retreat to get better ground, or he may have taken people hostage and may have smoke checked a bunch of people in there. I guarantee you saved lives that day. Regardless of the outcome that would happen to you, you were put here for a fucking reason. And yeah, it sucks. You got fucking shot. It really does. And I can't imagine what that pain and what those dreams are like every single day and every single night. I can't imagine. But if you look at it with a silver lining, the glass half full instead of half empty, you saved lives that day. Not only did you save the lives of everybody there, but you saved the lives of the people inside of that building. Make no mistake of it.
I agree.
Dude, you were a fucking hero that day. Yeah.
But yeah, so they carried me out of there, most poor kids, and I felt bad, big guy and everything, and then I started seeing big guys show up. Like I started seeing our under clever clothes, Dave, the guy you had on earlier, show up. Another guy named Jesse, Danny, Mike, a bunch of like SWAT guys and undercover guys that spend half their lives in the gym, and I felt myself starting to move a lot quicker. Like I was like, we're moving quickly now, right there. There was an a PD officer there that had me by my left arm, and that guy had so much grip. 2 days later, I had handshake bruises on my bicep. I was like, who had that on? It was this guy. This guy wasn't letting go, and they were running. And they were getting me out of there, and I was hurting pretty bad. I was still in pretty good shock. But I remember thinking to myself, I'm not dying here. This is not – I didn't come all this way and do all these – I'm not dying here on this crappy little street. This street's like a block long. It is just a horrible neighborhood, and I was like, I'm not dying here. This is not what it's meant for me.
So did that give you a sense of like confidence? You're like, oh no, I'm not.
I did.
Like,
I was like,
no, I'm not dying here.
And I've always been a pretty capable person, and I was like, if I'm telling myself I'm not gonna die, I'm not gonna die here, and I'm not gonna die here. I was like, just get to the hospital and you'll be okay. Right? And the hospital's not far; it's like a mile away. So Dave starts working on me. They get me out of harm's way. They get me out of the fire. This guy starts firing from that elevated position, and they're laying down cover fire. And he had tourniqueted himself where I had shot him. So that delay where he's treating himself for the injuries I inflicted helped them get me out of there. Just miraculous, right? So they get me to, and now they're laying down cover fire and they get me out of harm's way. But it's a gunfight. It's I've been in gunfights in the military. This is full on Fallujah type stuff going on. So I remember laying there, and Dave, he puts another tourniquet on, but he puts it all the way into the armpit. Like the first couple, there's some down here. I had long sleeves on, so it's hard to tell where the damage is at exactly. But I was still bleeding pretty good because I had some higher exit wounds and things. So he puts this tourniquet all the way into my armpit, and Dave is a strong dude, and he cranks that thing down. That was probably the most painful thing of all. Everything that I went through, that I felt that pain, and I was like, oh no, that hurts, right? And he saw the look on my face when he cranked it, and he knew it was going to stop the bleeding, and it did. It did stop the bleeding. And then I told him, I said, I got an exit wound on the back too. You got to take a look at this exit wound, Dave. You got to get this. And so they get my stuff off, and he rolls me over, and he said, I can't get the bleeding stopped. I just can't get the bleeding stopped. I got to get your ambulance. It's fine. And he had this look on his face of worry, but anger. Like, I am so mad at what's and worried. He was worried, and me and Dave been friends for a long time. He's a good guy, family friends with his kids. Our kids went to school together. Wives on, so I knew it. I saw the look on his face, and I was thinking to myself, I need to help him out right here. I needed. So I looked. I said, I don't think Sandra's his wife. I said, I don't think Sandra's going to get all the blood out of my stuff this time. and he looked at me like, and I could just see a little bit of relief on us, just a little bit of relief. And he knew I was going to be okay. I think right then he knew I was going to be okay. So I had been in a car accident. I told you about the role of a car accident 10 years prior. He was a brand new sergeant at the time, showed up at the scene, put me in that ambulance. Then he went through the field and collected all my gear that had blood on it, took it home to his house where they washed all of it out and brought it back. Just solid people. I mean, just a solid family altogether. So I tell him, I don't think you're getting all the blood out of this time. And he looked relieved. So they get me in an ambulance. And the last thing he's shutting the door on the ambulance. I see him and I'm thinking to myself, he's going to go take care of this. He's going to handle this situation for me. I made a big mess and he's going to go take care of it. And he did. He spent the next 9 hours, stepping over my blood in the street to go and make sure that this guy didn't hurt anyone else. Right. So I'm on my way to the hospital. I was hurting. There's an old fire guy jumped in the ambulance, really salted the earth dude. He knew the thing. Young kid in there too. Young kid's like, hey, let's get a line started. And the guy's like, no, we're almost there. Let's just keep him alive. So we get to the hospital. and I'm still fighting through it. Surgeons are working on me and stuff like that, and I felt my body relax. And I remember, because I had been thinking the entire time, just make it to the hospital. You'll be okay once you get to the hospital, right? You just get to the hospital. Well, then when I got to the hospital, my body started to relax, and that moment was the closest I came to dying. Ooh. I lost a lot of blood. There was a guy there with an oxygen on my face, and I felt myself fading. And I got his attention. I said, "Hey, you got to do something now. I'm slipping away right now." And they did. He's like, "Hey, he's slipping. Get him now." They got me knocked out, got me into surgery. I remember one of the surgeons saying, "We're going to try to save his arm." I was like, "Yeah, please, that'd be really great. I like to have both my arms."
So you could hear that stuff.
I heard that. I remember those things. It's amazing what I remember. I remember so many details. I remember so many people in there. And yeah, I remember the surgeons cutting tourniquets off, and then all of a sudden the blood starts again. They put their own tourniquet back on. I remember when Dave's tourniquet came off, the relief that my arm felt because it was so tight. But it worked. It got the blood stopped. So yeah, I went into surgery. I woke up several hours later, probably about the time that the standoff was getting over. First news thing I see is the sheriff there talking about suspects passed, and I was pretty upset about the whole thing. I started crying, and because that's, like I said, it wasn't what I wanted to do. It's not. There was never my intention to have someone lose their life over that stupid thing. But I was so happy that no other deputies got hurt, no other officers got hurt, no other civilians were hurt. I mean, for a whole big mess that it was, nobody else got hurt. So yeah, and it has done a lot for me as far as my spiritual health too. I've reconnected with my relationship with God over this. I have always believed in God, but I didn't really have a relationship with God until now. Mm-hmm. But you can't sit there and witness a miracle like this and have God spare you and then deny it. It just doesn't work like that. Right. There's no way that guy didn't load his gun. There's no way. This is not feasible. I would be dead, and it just wasn't my time. And I have some survivor guilt about that too, because the dedication at the end of this show is for a young officer from the same police department that came there and helped me. He was killed about just a little over a year before I was shot, and only like 2 or 3 blocks away, really close by. It's not a good neighborhood, but he didn't have a chance. He never had a chance to survive that. And 26 years old. And why did he not survive? And I did. So I had but a really, really good friend of mine, actually just last weekend, we were talking about it, and he said something that I had never even really thought about. And he said, God doesn't owe us any explanation. The universe doesn't owe us an explanation. God doesn't owe us an explanation for what he does. He does what he does. And the reason that we don't know why is probably because we can't comprehend. Why me and not him? God doesn't owe me an explanation for that. And he's absolutely right. He doesn't owe any of us an explanation for anything. So,
and if you think you're getting one, you're going to be waiting a long time.
You can be waiting a long time because it's just that's not the way it's supposed to be. And so I'm just thankful to him every day that I'm here with my family. I'm here with my friends. I get to go do these things. My life is actually pretty great. I think in the long run, I'm going to look back at this situation and realize this might have been the best thing that ever happened to me. What it was wake-up call. It was God saying, you don't need to do this anymore. Your job in this profession, your time in this profession is done.
And he may have taken you out of it now so that you don't widow your wife later.
Right.
And
God, knowing my heart, knows that I'm not just going to take a tap on the shoulder. I'm going to need a slap. It's going to take a slap to wake me up, because a tap on the shoulder is not going to do it. It's not going to open my eyes enough.
No, I mean, you already talked about how you had been ejected from a vehicle, and then before that, you got hit on your bike. Like,
I've been ambushed.
You had some incidents that would have crippled officers, and then I'm done. Yet you had to be smacked in the head and be like, hey,
I'm hard-headed.
That's it.
So I can tell you that I recently heard this expression, and anybody who's listened to our show for long enough knows I don't. There's nothing I love more than some good old-fashioned wisdom from your grandparents, where shit rhymed or was easy to digest, aphorism or whatever. I heard one, and I had never heard it before, and I liked it. It sounded cool. It sounded badass. But then I actually reflected on it, and there was a I think a religious significance to it, in the sense that we all have a destiny, right? And the saying that I heard was, "A man who is destined to hang has no fear of drowning." And it, you're like, oh yeah, if I'm gonna hang, why should I fear drowning? That's some pirate shit. That's some, whatever. But if you think about it, if you know that this is not how it ends, and there's something more for you, then then you can live that without fear. And I think that sounds like the place you're getting to.
Yeah, I'm there, dude. I'm there. I don't fear death. I don't want to die, obviously. But
Right.
I no longer have any fear of death.
Right.
Because when it's time, it's time.
Mm-hmm.
When he's ready for me, he'll take me.
Right.
But until then, no weapon formed is gonna. I truly believe I'm here for a reason, and I'm hoping that I'm thinking right now. I'm focusing on my family, my son especially. He's 12. He's at a very formative point in his life where he needs his father here to guide him. I didn't have my father around when I was young, and it was very hard on me growing up without a dad around. So I'm thinking, and it could be generational. It could be something that comes up with him, his kids, his grandkids. There's something that is meant for me to pass on that there's still left for me to do. And when I'm done with it, then he'll take me. And until then, I'm fine.
Right.
So
100%. And
it's I find so much peace in that. It's unbelievable, right? Unbelievable.
Yeah, you let it go.
Yeah.
There's peace and solace in borrowed time. I mean, you could have bitten the bullet 3 times over, right? And you didn't, and you're here, and you're here to do good things, to guide people,
right?
Guide your
and
son.
That's why I'm here with you guys tonight, because I'm hoping that whatever I said somewhere touches someone and they understand it. They see the same thing.
Well, I appreciate that.
And forgiveness. I think there's peace in forgiveness.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't have room in my heart for a man that's dead, and I learned forgiveness from Jesus and a friend of mine who went through a similar situation. I had a really good friend of mine, who was retired out medically, got slammed on his head in an altercation, traumatic brain injury, never the same. But I mean, just an awesome man, just all the way around awesome. And the guy that did it to him, later on, he was a bad guy, and some other bad guys caught up with him and they shot him in the street. He died. And I remember when that happened, I was so happy. I was like, oh man, that guy's gone. That's the guy that retired Matt. And I called him and I said, hey, that guy got killed. And he said, oh man, that's too bad. I said, what do you mean it's too bad? He goes, oh, I forgave him a long time ago. I don't have it. And I thought to myself, wow, I want to be like this guy. So I emulate that guy and I try to be like him the best I can. Just like Jesus forgave the people who were doing it to him as they were doing it. If we could all try to be like that a little more, man, let's be a better world.
Well, I mean,
better world all there for sure.
You'll get no argument out of me. But before we run out of time, I want to give you, because we always give our guests a chance to dedicate their episode, and I know we touched on it a little bit, but I want to spend the last minute or two having you talk about your dedication.
Yeah, my dedication is to a young man. His name is J.D. Alvarado, killed in line of duty. Tough kid. Tough guy. I didn't know him personally, and I'm sorry that I didn't. He did a traffic stop, just a regular traffic stop. Wasn't looking for this guy. This guy was wanted and had a gun. So this guy pours out of his car and starts dumping around on this poor young man. And this kid doesn't even have his car in park yet before he starts taking rounds. Takes 11 rounds total, 4 in the face. Dead, on scene, obviously. But got a round off, hit suspect in the hand, and that's how they found the guy at the hospital. So
he got his guy.
He got him, it was meant, that was, So, there's other ones out there I can think of that, just didn't make it. It's tough. But we owe it to them to keep the fight on. Especially the people that are still in the fight, keep the fight, right? It's we can't all keep the fight, but those that can should, right? And for those guys that can't, so.
But we'll honor them by talking about them on this show. Yeah. We'll honor them by sharing stories that help them in their police cars at night when they're alone working the late shift, and they need to hear something that they can, identify with and feel like they're not alone in the dark. And
Absolutely.
we'll keep doing that.
We're all in it together.
When I started doing this, Jesse, I realized that while I tried to pretend I was done with law enforcement wasn't done with me, and I had something else to contribute. And that's why, Chuck's here too. And now you. So welcome, brother.
All right. Thanks, guys. And I really appreciate you having me. It was good.
We would love to have you back, because I would love to just talk about the other stuff, the patrol stuff.
We could talk about, and we could talk about some of my military stuff.
It doesn't even have to be like all of that stuff is awesome. So we have to get producer Dylan to.
Well, if you ever run out of guests, just hit me up. I'm retired. I'll see all you guys anytime.
We don't have to run out. I'll just have you back as many times as we can get you. All right, Chuck, what do you have for us?
Well, I want to say, Jesse, you're a fucking hero. Everybody who helped you is a hero. Dave, you're a fucking hero. That all those training officers and their boots, killer fucking job. Because of you guys, this man is still standing. And because of you, Jesse, they are still standing. And the people inside of that building are still standing and alive. You were put here for a reason. And I would like to say this. You touched on it and you said, well, those of you who are still in the fight. Brother, you're still in the fight, and you're still in the fight for other people who are no longer in the fight actively, but they're still actively fighting. How many people lose their lives when the fight is over, but they're still fighting the demons inside of their fucking head, right? So you are here, and someone's going to hear this, and someone's going to be like, damn, I resonate with that, and it could save someone. It really could. So I would like to say, like, you're still fighting for those who can't, or those who feel like they can't fight anymore. You're going to be that voice of reason for them. So I want to say thank you for that. And I want to say thank you for everybody for today, for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to follow us on Instagram at war_stories_official and our Facebook at War Story Podcast. If you're already following us, we really appreciate if you could share our posts and help spread the word. You can also check out the link in our bio on both platforms to find all of our social media, our media links, and our website. Our podcast is available on all major streaming platforms, including YouTube. If you'd like to support us, head over to our website at www.warstoriesofficial.com. Grab some gear. Do you have a story to tell, or you know someone who does? We're always looking for law enforcement, veterans, correction officers, dispatchers, firefighters, medics, ER docs, and ER nurses to feature on the show. If you're interested, email us at booking.warstories@gmail.com, or a better way, and I say this because emails can get messed up and everything that's going on, linkedin.com/War Stories Podcast. Best way to get a hold of us if you want to be featured on the show. Share your story. Our producer Dylan will get you on the show.
Handles the scheduling.
We'd love to have you on. If you know someone who'd be a great fit, please send them our way. Also check the link or check us out on TikTok at www.tiktok.com/War Stories Locker Room. And our producer Dylan is always there standing by. He can get you booked. He can do all that good stuff. Thank you for the support. Stay safe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell and all that funny mom. Go to our Facebook so you can be notified when that shit drops. Thanks for the support. Stay safe.
There it is. A lot. You got a lot out there.
That's a lot.
Jesse, thanks again for coming on, man. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
And until our next episode, come home with your shield or on it.